Well, good evening, everyone. Here we go, the end of the weekend, Sunday night, 8 o'clock here in the evening, and it's been an interesting day. Good news is for Sterner and Explorer, everything is pretty much going on track with this low pressure system, which is starting to appear like it's developing into something more traditional, and that's making it easier for everyone. For us, we're not sure tomorrow night for tomorrow night's tracker. It may well be me, or it could be Lutz. We're not sure. We start to travel 5:30 tomorrow morning with Jane and I with 4 23-kilo bags, which we're still packing. So that's going to be interesting. Up to Paris, and then we head across to London for the British Yachting Awards on Monday night, and then back to Paris on Tuesday night to fly out to China and then down to New Zealand. So the next couple of days, someone will be doing a tracker, but it could be timelines could be a little bit different. We'll just see how it goes. Georgie and Jack are in New Zealand. Lutz is just coming back from Lanzarote, and Ada's here as well. So it'll be lots of different things going on. So I look forward to that. Rob's still in the UK, and we're all basically headed towards Auckland in the days ahead. So straight to the tracker now. No other news to really report other than the fact that that translator just sneaked past the waypoint here, which was really interesting. We were watching him go round, watching him head towards it, and worked out that they just snuck around here by about 3.5 miles. So they were very close, but they obviously got some good navigators on board, and they just got around, and that's good for them. They've made to top speed now, zipping straight south again. And Spirit of Helsinki's now got to work out how to get up here and get around the mark. They know where it is, and they probably know where they are, and we'll get onto that in a minute. But we'll head straight back to the tail enders at the moment. Some of you may have seen the post that we did this morning, just explaining the weather. I hope I'm not making a seasick there. Finding, there we go, Explorer and Sterner, one back again. I'll just move this down a little bit. Okay, so yeah, we had good chats again on the satellite phone to brief them on everything that's happening, and they're all pretty much organised and pretty sweet. Sterner's in a slightly better position than Explorer, because the reality is that we've given them a waypoint, which is up here. The waypoint is 39 south and 41 east, and it's around about where my cursor is there now. And effectively, we're saying stay to the west of that point and below the south latitude, below 39 degrees south and west of 41 degrees east until 2300 on the 29th. So they've still got a few days to go before they can get there, but that's the game plan, because this low pressure system over to the that's going to form on the 28th, 29th is going to come down. It'll form up here, and then it'll move across in this direction. And in actual fact, we follow windy rather than the weather forecasting here on the Yellow Brick tracker, and they're showing two conflicting opinions right now. Anyway, and I'll show you that just briefly here. So Sterner's doing 4.3 knots. They've got plenty of room to keep coming to the southeast or the east, and then eventually when it goes southwest, they'll hook up and head north up to run across the back of the low. Explorer's a little bit closer. They'll stall a little bit, and as soon as it goes southwest, they will do the same thing. So Explorer right now is doing 7.3 knots, and quite comfortable with what's going on. They did all their training. They checked everything, put storm jibs up, trysails, and swap things around and put it all down again, reefing everything, make sure everything's set to go if they do get some heavy weather. What they will get here now is just some push from the northwest, and then pretty much sometime tomorrow it'll swing to the southwest, and when it does that, they should be in a position to slowly hook around with that and start heading north very slowly, not in a hurry. They don't want to get too quick, because by the 28th, this is late on the 28th, heading to the 29th, you can see the low forming up, and it's changed completely to the forecast that was scheduled a few days ago. This zone of confusing seas is quite small. and that's all good news. And by the time it gets to this point, they will be coming up here on this southerly, heading north, basically, in reasonable conditions. The sea is quite mild down here because it's been, pretty calm. So they're only going to get 3 or 4 meter seas. So that's kind of cool. And then very quickly, and what the Yellowbrick tracker is showing is the center of this high moving rapidly over to 50, but we're not seeing that on windy yet. And this is forecast wind, not gusts. So, but you can see it looks as if it clears right out, because that waypoint we've given them is around about here. But what you have is a big gust zone here, with gusting 45 and higher, 45, 50, still working towards that waypoint that we've given them. And so, but it is moving faster, and we'll have a look at this early in the morning. We update their weather every 12 hours or 24 hours, depending on what's needed, and all is certainly looking good. And so when they when it's like this, they'll be, once they're coming north, they'll just ride straight around this and just follow the southerly, which will turn into a southwesterly, and they'll be back on track towards New Zealand. And it's probably only then cost them a day or so, not much more than a day in terms of this mucking around, because they're still following generally the track to come down and work their way up. So so all is good, and that's moving out of the way very fast. So we'll have a look at that again tomorrow. Anyway, so I'm feeling a lot more relaxed now than we were in the past few days. So what's happening over here with the rest of the fleet? All very interesting. They're now starting to interact in what I call real Southern Ocean stuff, where there is actually defined highs and lows coming through, and it changes the wind direction and so on. So to my great surprise, but it does make sense, Penjuic is still having to hold on starboard tack, doing 7.1 knots, heading up quite high. Probably not where they'd prefer to be, because they've got to get underneath Tasmania here. But they're still, unfortunately, the centre of the high is still directly below them. So it's not quite right. If they tack now, they'd be coming down here again. So they're probably, waiting for things to change a little bit. But it hasn't changed as quick as we had hoped for them. Nonetheless, they're still holding first in line honours, first in IRC, and first in flyer class. It's not too bad. And you can see translated now, when they've got across, they're actually making pretty much east-southeast, which is pretty good. It's probably a better angle. If you call this the rum line, I'll just make this a bit bigger so you can see it. If you call this the rum line, you can see they're only a few degrees, or they're sort of probably 30 degrees off the rum line, whereas Penjuic's 45 degrees off the rum line. So that's a bit more of a losing tack rather than what translated have got. And because they're further behind the center of the high, when it starts to roll, they'll get the benefit of that quicker than Penjuic, because they're on the top end. But not much Penjuic can do about that, and translated is just lucky to be in that position. The wind here is picking up. You can see once you get the colour again, it goes to 30, gusting maybe 40 or something, and the seas would be building a bit. Anyway, they're through. So we'll start back front to back again now, just confirming that 115 nautical mile day for Penjuic, and that's vector made good. So that's the distance made good towards the finish, not through the water. She would have been carrying faster through the, travelled more distance through the water, but that's calculating the distance towards Auckland. And translated second 222 by the look of it, second in line on us, second in IRC, second in flyer class, and did 117 nautical mile day, tacking quite well. That's cool. I'll just pick this up to give you a better image. Maiden doing pretty well, straight line stuff now, 6.6 knots, 142 mile day, and heading straight for the waypoint. In fact, they've flattened out right on the latitude here. It's 45 degrees south, and they know where they are. Let's have a look what the clouds are doing at the moment to see if they can get anything. Nope, they're under cloud cover, so that's interesting. So running a good DR at the moment for sure. And wave height, just to see what's happening. That's pretty reasonable. It's a 3 to 4 meter sea there, so bouncing, or not bouncing around, but certainly Southern Ocean stuff when you're taking it on the bow there. A bit of water over the deck, all those sorts of issues. So that's pretty good. Spirit of Health, what did we say here? 4th in line honours, 5th in IRC, and 3rd in flyer class. So they've slowed down a little bit relative to their IRC handicap. And then Spirit of Helsinki, 7.4 knots, 176 nautical mile day, but not going to be fun. The next one, they've got to tack up to that mark. They're 7th in IRC and 2nd in cellular class. Now, it comes to mind, you think, oh, it would be so easy to sail past that waypoint. So what would happen if they did that? And I'm not suggesting for a minute that they will, but if they did, the first thing, if they sail past it, they get a penalty. And I'd have to look exactly what it is in the notice of race, but it'd be pretty, it's probably 2 or 3 days. And then what happens is we look at the distance that they passed it by, which is about 40 miles. I've had a look at this. So they would immediately be given a new waypoint. Okay, so there's no incentive to pass that. So what would happen is if they just kept going and they've missed it by 40 miles, we would probably double that and give them a waypoint which is 80 miles higher than this waypoint, right? So it'd be up here somewhere. And we would take an objective that's probably the same distance this way, 80 miles this way, 80 miles that way, or maybe more, which is feasible for them to get to, and say, first of all, you get the time penalty. Secondly, now you have to get up to this other waypoint, which will be double the distance up that you missed it by. So it's no incentive whatsoever for them to miss that waypoint. So you'll probably see them start to tack soon to get around that. And they can go past it, but as long as they come back and go around it. So they might do tack across here, tack across there. They're probably waiting for a wind shift, so as that center of the high is moving away. I'm pretty confident that most of them now, if we come back here, you'll see they're right underneath Australia now. There's Australia right there. Australia has fantastic HF radio coverage all through the Southern Ocean here, and they give the GMDSS WMO high seas weather forecast, as well as some national forecasts once they get a bit closer. So they will for sure be able to plot the center of this high. And also they should be receiving the WeatherFax transmissions from Australia as well. That was the case in the Golden Globe race coming through here. The boats that had WeatherFax were able to pick them up, and it was quite handy. So I think they know what's going on now, but that's only an assumption. So we'll see. Okay, coming back again, slowly working through the fleet. The speed of keep is tossed, so she's now fine on the starboard bow, so on starboard tack, heading up, and not going so fast. 4.5 knots. The sea would be on the nose as well. 131 mile day. 5th in line honours, 9th IRC, and 4th in fly class. Now Triana, what's happening here? So Triana, 3rd in IRC, that's the big one. She's still managing to perform really well. 7.5 knots, able to hold that, but not making the mark, of course. But that wind should swing further. It's still got a little bit of east in it. It'll swing further to the north, and that's when they'll look to tack up a bit, because that gives them a better slant. So 180 mile day, that's pretty good. Sailing quite well. Galliana was secure way down the bottom here. There's further a south boat, 7.3 knots, 177 nautical mile day, and managing 4th in IRC. They'd be happy with that. I know they'd be more than happy with that. So the leaders are losing a little bit of their advantage there, and 2nd in IRC. So sailing well in this northerly. Evrika, same deal, 7.7 knots, 186 mile day. Enjoying the conditions, on the beam and 3-4 metre seas. There's probably 20 knots, gusting 28. Typical Southern Ocean stuff. So they're still managing some pretty good sailing for the Southern Ocean. Outlaw, 6.7 knots, 193 mile day, 8th in line honours, 8th in IRC, 3rd in adventure class. They've slipped back a bit in IRC. They were actually a little bit better than that before. And Neptune back here, enjoying the ride and doing pretty well. Let our spinningers up there, so you can see it's hooking around. There was that low pressure system that was interacting with them. I'll have a look in a minute. 215 mile day, so they've caught up a bit of ground. 10th in IRC and line honours, and 5th in fly class. Let's just have a look and see what's happening here. Yeah. Okay, so that's a bit of a band. It's not a high as such. It's just a big trough coming through. We'll have a look in a minute. So White Shadow's on the cusp of that, but they're still sailing and it's all going the right way. This is where it's not necessarily a high, because it's going the same direction top and bottom. It's just a hole. So it's a off in the middle of nowhere. 6.1 knots, 196-mile day. That's good. So they still kept the speed up there. They've been sailing quite well all day and just slowing down a little bit now by the look. 11th line on us, 11th in IRC. So we'll just drop this back and we'll see what's going to happen with the center of this high up the front that's dominating. It's quite a big high, actually. It's taken up the whole of the bight here. So let's have a look and see what the Tasman's doing as well. Okay, so there's a low here. There's a low here at the entrance to the Tasman Sea, and there's a gigantic high filling up the whole of the Great Australian Bight and dominating everything for the boats entering that. And everything will depend now. Their times to Auckland will depend on what happens to this. It's going east, so it's hovering. It's not moving fast. Now it's starting to move a bit, but again, not doing anything super fast, but it's not bad. So basically heading to the east. And you can see, when that happens, the wind is still there. At that point, Penduic will have a chance to tack across. Should tack across after 24 hours. That's the 26th. So sometime tomorrow, you're bound to see her tack across. All the other boats, once they get past this, and this is looking good for the tail, for the back group, because they're going to get a sou'wester blowing them to the mark. They can give up. In fact, I was watching the front then, and I didn't. I was watching the front. I wasn't watching what happened to the back end guys here as this is going. So I'm just going to do a special take on the weather for this. So these guys down the bottom, like Triana, for instance, they're not laying the mark, but it looks like very quickly before they get there, because if we just focus on Triana is 196 miles, so a day, 24 hours out from that mark. So let's just watch what happens to the weather in the next 24 hours. There it is. There, it's still northerly. No, okay, so it's not in 24 hours, goes quiet. It's actually going to be the next one. So those behind Triana, so Triana's still got to earn their keep. They're going to have to tack at least once. Then it's holding through. So this is actually the second day. Neptunes look like they're going to be the ones that get an advantage from that, but Galliana won't have anything there. They'll be across here within a day and have to tack up. So there's a few of them. Outlaw will do okay because she's already up there. So so no big wins there for any of them except for Neptune and White Shadow maybe. Okay, so I hope all that makes sense. So sometime tomorrow you're due to see Penduic tack, and the others, some of these are going to be struggling to get around the mark. Maiden looks good. Outlaw looks good. The Spirit Equip is already coming up to gain ground, but losing a bit of time heading towards Auckland, but still pretty good. Let's, having said that, let's look at the leaderboard to check the IRC and also to see an ETA situation now, because their average speeds overall will start to slow down. It's pretty radical. When you look here at the average speed from the start is 9.1 knots average speed. That's pretty impressive. And if they maintain that, they'll be there on the 8th, which is too early for us. But anyway, I think they'll lose a couple of days because we've got a few people coming in on the 12th. But anyway, we'll manage that, and it'll be pretty impressive to see them there on the 8th if they can do it. But let's wait and see. If we then look at the last 24-hour average, see the VMG for the last 24 hours is only 4.4 knots. So that changes the scenario for arriving, but they're not going to make 4.4 between now and the time they reach Auckland. But you can see how it alters the whole scenario here. So I just go back to from the start, and see what some of the others are doing. Yeah, translated on the 12th, but she'll be later. So yeah, still holding in. I think Penduic will probably arrive 12, 13, maybe 14. A bit hard to say. Going to lose some ground in the Tasman for sure, possibly. And then the others are translated on the 12th, 13, 14, 15, 16, something like that. Spirit of Helsinki. Anyway, we'll worry about that another day, but we will have a quick look at IRC. See the timings on IRC to see where it's at. So Penduic has got 40 and 6 hours, and translated 9 really they were only like an hour behind before, but now they've dropped back quite a bit. So we've got an hour and 6 and 41. So they're about 18, no, 24, 18. Yeah, 6 3s are 18. So 18 hours behind Penjuic, and then 14 hours back to Triana. Not too bad. And a couple of hours for Galliana with Secure. So that's quite interesting. Okay, I think that's about it for us for a Sunday night. I will come back here and see if anyone's got any questions or anything. And what have we got here? John, g'day, John. Could Penjuic pass between Australia, Melbourne, and Tasman Island? There's no requirement to go round, or did we? When we discuss these things, I distinctly remember the discussion about the track. I would have to actually have a look whether we wanted to force them around the bottom of Tassie or whether we didn't even mention it. And I don't think they have to. Anyone normally would go underneath Tasmania because it's the most direct route. So, but I think if someone had to or wanted to, it's okay to go through Bass Strait. G'day, Mark Daniels. Paola, do they have to go south of Tassie? I think they do. No, I don't think they do, but I will have a look. It sounds funny because I devised all this stuff, but that conversation was a long time ago. And at one point, we were going to send them up to Sydney and sail them into Sydney Harbour and around an island without stopping and come out again, just because the first Whitbread in 1973 actually went to Sydney. It didn't go to Auckland. That started the second edition onwards, and then Auckland was the big, it was the number one favourite stop of the Whitbread. All the crews loved it and all the rest of it. And I'm sure it's going to be a real highlight for the Ocean Globe race. Everyone's getting ready for arriving, and it's the city of sails. Auckland is really quite a big deal, and they've had a huge history with all the, with the Whitbreads. Huge number of New Zealand sailors have been involved with the Whitbread, and then the Volvo race, and so it goes. And in fact, it was a pretty big deal. They used, some of the people building their own boats to enter the Whitbread, was fantastic, outward bound, and she's still there. I'm hoping to see her when we get there. But anyway, certainly Steinlager and Lion New Zealand will be there. They'll be on the dock, and I know that Outward Bound had a big refit, I believe, a couple of years ago, and a whole story there with Digby Taylor. All very fascinating at the time. I used to look at that and dribble, think, well, cheapest, maybe I could build a boat. Anyway, that's another story. G'day, Tara, Southampton, wet and windy, great. We're going to be over there tomorrow night. Evening from the UK. I hope they have a fair winds till the end. Yeah, me too. Interesting day on the tracker for tomorrow. Absolutely. All right, that's it. So have a good evening, and someone will see you tomorrow at some particular time. We'll see. Thanks.